Every time you buy a watermelon, do you usually just cut it quickly into pieces and place them on a plate? I used to do that many times too, until I realized that with just a small change in the way I cut it, this familiar fruit can become a much more polished-looking dessert. Today, I'll share 5 ways to cut watermelon that are easy to eat and perfect for storing in the refrigerator, serving guests, or preparing for the whole family. Let's get started. Let's start with my daughter's favorite way to cut watermelon. This way, she always has watermelon ready in the refrigerator and doesn't need to call mom every time she wants to eat some. I start by cutting off both ends of the watermelon to create flat surfaces. This helps the watermelon stand firmly on the cutting board and makes it easier for me to work with. Stand the watermelon upright, then move the knife from top to bottom to remove the green outer rind. Just peel while slowly rotating the watermelon. This way, the rind will be removed more evenly without cutting away too much of the flesh. Once the rind has been fully removed, lay the watermelon on its side and cut it in half. From here, you only need to cut the red flesh into bite-sized pieces, depending on the size of the container you plan to use. The most convenient thing is that the pieces are just the right size to eat, not too large. That way, whenever I want some, I only need to open the container and take them out right away without taking out the knife and cutting board again. Do you often prepare fruit ahead of time like this? For me, this is a small habit, but it helps the whole family eat fruit more often. Place the watermelon in an airtight container and put it in the refrigerator. Honestly, having a cold container of fruit ready like this makes summer days in the kitchen feel much more pleasant. The first method is perfect for everyday eating. But when guests come over, I like to serve watermelon this way, so the pieces look more polished without needing any fancy decoration. Cut the watermelon into a long piece and keep the rind underneath like a base. Use a knife to gently separate the watermelon flesh from the rind, but don't lift the whole piece out. Let the flesh stay right on top of the rind, just like I'm doing here. At this point, the watermelon rind becomes a natural tray, both neat and beautiful. To give the watermelon piece a little more detail, I lightly score both sides of the flesh. The cuts don't need to be too deep. They just need to be fairly even and soft-looking. Continue cutting the flesh into bite-sized pieces. Then place them back in their original position. Finally, gently push the pieces alternately to both sides. You see that with just one small change in the way it is arranged, an ordinary piece of watermelon turns into a very pretty watermelon boat. The pieces are slightly separated, so they are easy to take, easy to eat, and also help keep the watermelon juice from running all over the plate. I think this method is best when friends or relatives come over. You don't need to add any decoration at all. The watermelon rind itself already helps the fruit plate look much fresher and more polished. If the watermelon boat feels playful and eye-catching, the third method feels a little softer and more elegant. Prepare a large piece of watermelon with the green rind still attached. Use a few simple knife cuts to separate the flesh from the rind, but remember to keep a long strip of rind running along the top edge. The remaining green strip will create a natural border, helping the watermelon slices stand out more and making them easier to hold when arranged on a plate. The first time I saw this serving style, I was immediately drawn to how cleverly the green rind was kept. The watermelon slices were cut evenly and arranged in a soft curve, looking almost like a fan opening up on the plate. Once the watermelon flesh has been separated, you can cut it into thin slices or bite-sized pieces. Place them on the plate, then gently fan the slices out to both sides. The most convenient thing about this method is that the watermelon looks very clean and elegant, while also making each slice easier to hold. And if you want your watermelon plate to look a little more special, pay attention to this method. The interesting part of this method is in the rind, which is cut into long strips. When lifted upward, they look almost like wings or a little tail. Take a piece of watermelon with the rind still attached and gently separate the flesh from it. With the remaining rind, use a knife to cut it into long strips that are fairly even. This is the most important step, so hold the knife steady and cut slowly so the rind strips are fairly even. The first time I saw this method on a cooking show, I thought it must require professional tools. But actually, with just a sharp knife and a little patience, you can do it at home too. Once the rind strips are ready, gently bend them upward. You will see the rind begin to spread out beautifully, almost like the wings or tail of a bird. Arrange the red watermelon pieces around the shaped rind. The green and red colors placed next to each other make the plate look much fresher, more elegant, and much more eye-catching. What I like about this method is that the rind, which seems like something we would normally throw away, becomes the most beautiful detail on the fruit plate. I bet when people see this watermelon plate, many of them will think you spent a lot of time preparing it. But actually, with just a few careful cuts and a little patience, you can have a fruit plate that looks much more impressive without adding any decorative accessories. The final idea is more playful, especially if you have young children at home. I cut the watermelon into triangle-shaped pieces and keep a little green rind on the outer edge. This small piece of rind is very important because it creates green lines between the bright red watermelon layers. Prepare a clean skewer, then gently thread each triangle-shaped piece of watermelon onto it. As you stack the pieces, gently turn each one in a different direction, just like I'm doing here. You can imagine that we are building a small watermelon tower. At the very top, I use a small piece of watermelon to make a simple bird head. Just a small shape is enough to make the whole thing look fun and charming. To make the plate more lively, take another piece of watermelon and cut it into small heart shapes. Arrange the heart pieces around the tower in the center, slightly spread out in a semicircle or fan shape. The green rind between the red watermelon layers helps the watermelon tower look deeper and more lively. This is probably the method that children in the house will like the most. I think just seeing this arrangement will make them want to run over and grab a piece right away. So from one familiar watermelon, we can turn it into 5 completely different serving styles. I hope today's ideas give you more inspiration whenever you prepare fruit on hot days. Which of these 5 methods do you like best? Share with me because I'd really love to know which cutting style you will try first. Thank you for staying with me today. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.